Instead of saying, when I have energy, I'll do these hard things, to be like, well, I don't have energy and it makes it challenging to do these hard things. How can I fix that? And how can I move towards coming up with solutions to that? Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous. Welcome back, everybody, to the Dangerous Man Podcast. This is your host, John Kostohris, and your co-host,
Adam Thooft. What's up, boys?
What's up, boys? Today, we've got a great topic for you guys. Not as much something we want to necessarily teach, but something that Adam and I just really want to talk about and share some of our thoughts on. And that is the topic of
mindset.
Get it?
Yeah.
So what is mindset in a word, Adam?
I think it's the self-talk in your head, like what you tell yourself, what you're putting your mental energy towards in how do you approach different circumstances in life. But it does come down to a lot of like what you tell yourself in your head. I think that's a kind of the briefest way to explain it possible. But really, I think it's a little bit more nuanced and complicated than that to really like people go into it.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, that's great. Absolutely. So let's talk a bit about that. I know for our listeners, Adam, we've mentioned before, but he does sales. He sells security systems, and he was previously this past week in Houston, Texas, for a little powwow, off season. They call them a blitz. How was that?
Yeah, so like, before, like, I haven't done a lot of, it's door-to-door sales, so I'm knocking on doors and then got to pitch somebody, and then kind of the process is like, I try to like ask if I can, sit on a table with them inside their house. Transitioning into the home is what we call it in the biz. And you do that because in the house, you're a guest, or it's on the doorstep, you're just a pest. So you would rather be inside talking to them, and then they actually kind of see you more of as a friend rather than just being like, shoo, get out of here.
Right.
And like, I think going into it, I was like really stressed out because it's like, oh, I haven't done this in a minute. I'm a little rusty. It's been a couple of months since I've like knocked on doors and done door-to-door sales. We generally in the biz, we just call it knocking.
Right.
So I haven't knocked in like a couple months. So I'm like, I don't know, like rusty, like my last month of knocking wasn't the greatest. Like, and like you can have all this like self-doubt in my head.
Right.
And it was rough because I'm like, oh, I don't have my pitch isn't like as figured out as it should be. Like, I don't even know if I remember my full like indoor process. Like I have to like figure that stuff out a little bit more again. And then I think like I got there on Monday and flew in to Houston on Monday, and I went right from the airport to the neighborhood I was knocking in. Straight to the hood, as they say.
Straight to the hood.
Like I was the guy that picked me up was like driving, and I was just taking off the shirt that I was like traveling in and putting on my shirt to knock, like putting on my uniform like in the car, so I was ready to like hop out. And
I love that.
Yeah, I just knocked around a little bit. Kind of got into one house where I was like, oh yeah, I can just borrow your table real quick, and then he got in. It's like, actually, you want to come back like tomorrow and we can talk about it? I'm like, I'm super busy right now. I'm like, all right, I don't want to waste my time, so I'll just do that. If he's really interested, I will make it back in the house the next day.
Yeah.
But that like felt good. Like, oh hey, I did get somewhere my first day, and like the first I think I only like was knocking on doors for like 2.5 hours, so not that much time to be knocking. Normally we knock about 6 to 8 hours a day. Obviously because it's, winter and it gets dark earlier. We have to start a little bit earlier and end a little bit earlier because knocking past dark can be kind of sketchy for some people.
Somebody's knocking on your door and it's like, what? It's pitch black out. Like, what? Who would want to come to my house at this hour?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because it's like, even if that's like 6:30.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. When it's like starting to get like 4 or 5 p.m., I'm like, all right, 8 p.m. Oh, we're 4 hours ahead of that.
Yeah. It's
Gets me every time.
yes.
Yeah. And now we were kind of chatting earlier today, Adam and I were, about mindset and kind of what had changed for you that kind of made. So for context, Adam was saying that he had a lot more success this week than maybe some of the weeks that he had during his summer. And I know there's like been some process changes you implemented, but is there anything you want to speak to, at least with mindset, that kind of impacted that and kind of where you're at since then?
Yeah. So I think it has to do a lot with like attitude of your mindset as well. Like, okay, what do I want? What do I want to feel? Not what am I feeling, but what do I want to feel? Because I realized one of the days, like I was like knocking around and no one was like letting me inside or listening to me too much. And I realized like I was just kind of being a sales robot, which no one really wants to buy from a sales robot knocking on their door. They want to buy from a person that they can be a friend with.
Hello, sir. Would you like to buy this product, sir? No.
Please buy. It will be a certain amount that I will tell you at your table inside. May I borrow said table?
People be like, piss off, robot.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of here.
Fuck off.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you do then to not be that robotic sales guy?
I was riding to area with my buddy Luke, and
Shout out.
yeah, shout out. And we were just like, we're listening. He like started playing like sadder music, and I'm like, man, turn this sad music off. Let's listen to some happy stuff. He's like, all right. And then I just realized, wait, I just need to be happy on the doors. Like really the word joy really came to me, and I'm like, oh, like some people have described me as being joyful in the past. So like, let's just bring that to the doors, not to be like happy-go-lucky. Oh, I'm here to sell you security
Happy
systems.
birthday from us to you. We know it's your birthday, so we can have some to buy this security system.
Yeah, like
they'd be like, "What the? I just woke up from a nap. Okay."
Yeah, like we're not doing that. It's more like bottled enthusiasm, where it's like, "Hello, sir. How are you doing today? Oh, that's great. Sorry to bug you. I know you probably don't like talking to people like me. I'll be really quick. So we're doing this thing."
Yeah.
So like being like kind of enthusiastic, but like being bottled about it and like making sure like they're seen, I think is a huge thing with it. But like just that simple attitude switch of like, hey, I'm going to be joyful today, rather than being like, oh, bummed out. And I think part of that was also just being grateful. Like, hey, I'm in Houston, where it's essentially summer, rather than being in, Minnesota, where it's like 20 degrees.
It snowed like a foot while he was gone.
Yeah. Ridiculous. But
right.
That mindset of being able to be like, have gratitude for those things, I think was like really huge. But also I think confidence comes from preparation. Like we talked about in an earlier episode, like if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Just having some kind of plan, or like, hey, this is the one thing I'm going to do different today than yesterday. And because of that one thing, today is going to be a better day than yesterday. Just doing that one thing will give me more confidence, because I'm like, I am going to succeed today because I am going to do this one thing differently.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about, the other day we were talking about, what's his name? Who's like the mindset king, the guru of military, and David Goggins is his name. And one thing he talks about is like, he's in an interview and he's saying, hey, like if I don't go for a run that day, if I didn't go to the gym, he's like, I'm going to be thinking, he's like, this whole interview, I'm going to be thinking, like I didn't go to the gym. Like, I let myself down and like all these things. And he's like, that's going to be on my mind and it's going to throw me off my game and I'm going to be less confident. And one thing that he really talks about, and I've seen some other influencers on social media say this that really resonated with me, but like we almost have to do the things that we said we're going to do, not really for anyone else, but honestly, just so we can respect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I don't do and deliver on what I said I would, or if I don't, we kind of all know like what we need to do. We're kind of our own coach. And like, if we just actually did what we knew we needed to do, the hard things that we don't want to do, but we're like in our mind, we're like, I should probably do that. If we just listen to that voice, we'd be super confident. We'd be way more accomplished in life.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's a lot of hard things that we don't necessarily want to do. And because they're hard, then we're going to like I find myself overthinking a lot, trying to like beat around the bush and find some way around this really hard thing. But the hard thing is very simple. Like I don't have to think very much about it. I just have to do it. So rather than having to overthink and try to work a way around it, it's just way simpler just to go through. It will be harder, but like once you start into that, it actually becomes easier than it looks on the outside.
Yeah. What did you learn, that exact kind of concept you're talking about? Like, what did you learn and how would you kind of apply that to an example, like on the doors when you're knocking? Maybe a shift that happened for you or.
Yeah, I think one thing was like, hey, there's certain parts of the system, of like the security system, that aren't as interesting, but you still have to like cover them, but you can go over them pretty quickly. Because like I used to go into like detail because I'm like, oh, this stuff's actually pretty cool. But at the same time, it's like most people don't care about like how door sensors work. Like,
yeah,
just say we're getting sensors on your door, so if anybody opens your door when they're not supposed to be, we send the police over. Like
that probably means a lot more than like this technical feature of this door sensor.
So one part of the sensor goes into the door frame and the other part goes into the door. And when they're connected, it's by a magnet. And when they get unconnected, when your alarm is activated, then the alarm goes off. In the case of an alarm, we will call you and also come across our panel and check up on you. It's like, okay,
you know
what
that reminds me of?
What?
When a mommy and a daddy love each other.
Yeah.
So probably don't want to like get that technical at the doors, Like,
yeah. It's just like, yeah, we'll give you the door motion window sensors. Anyway, let's talk about cameras.
Yeah. The thing that people actually care about is the cameras. Yeah, absolutely. And, it's that simple shift of, yeah, you were still in the middle of a thought there with probably not talking about the door sensors.
Yeah, I think it's just like skipping over or like abbreviating the boring parts to actually get to the interesting parts. Spend more time on the interesting parts, so then it's actually like almost more exciting and more entertaining for the person that you're talking to. Because it'll make them not be bored. Because if they're bored, they're not going to buy from you.
Interesting. You also mentioned you threw out a phrase earlier or something along the lines of like focusing more on how people kind of feel about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone like, again, no one wants to buy from a robot. Everyone wants to buy from a friend. So you also have to like talk to them and be like, yeah, so what do you do for work? Oh, you're like, what breed is your dog? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like
having some kind of human connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like, what's the difference between, knocking on doors and just sending them an ad?
That human touch.
Yeah. It's like, hey,
personal.
You actually have a face to the company that you're buying from.
Wow. And I know how like impactful it can be to like, I've sent emails or filled out forms for like damaged products or, I had an issue with shipping. Some companies they make it super easy to just shoot them a message and they want to make it right. Mm-hmm. And I know like some of the companies that I just love are the ones that just like took care of me. Like I remember Chipotle. Like if you ever order through DoorDash with Chipotle, like, oh my gosh, I feel like 50% of the time they screw your order now. Like it's ridiculous. Like it's not even like occasionally. It's like probably half the time it's not going to be great. And
Chipotle now?
Oh yeah, like they'll miss all kinds of things from napkins and forks to like literally like the completely wrong order, and it's just like what the, or the portions are tiny, and it's like when you go in, never have any issues, but it's always when they deliver. And so I've sent feedback and said like, this sucked. This was a terrible experience. And their support was super easy. Like literally I rated the review, I rated the order like 1 star, and then immediately they have a pop-up. They're like, hey, like fill this out. Why? We want to make it right. It's like, whoa, okay. And then I got an email back really quick and they're like, hey, we are so sorry you had that experience. I think it was like here's 4 free entrees awarded to your account and through the app. I was like, okay.
That's a way to do it.
And I don't know if they refunded that one. They probably did, but I was like, okay, I respect you. Like, yeah, like I get that it's not Chipotle that messed it up. It's like whoever the 16-year-old they hired that just doesn't give a shit about his job.
Because, I mean, he's only getting paid like, what, $15 an hour?
Right. And, you know, obviously they need to like figure out their shit and have managers that can like keep things more consistent. But like if they're going to mess up, at least like make it right, you know?
Yeah.
Keep my respect. And so, but that's an example of like, you know, when companies really take their customer support seriously and they go above and beyond to make it just perfect and to continue to earn your trust and to allow you to feel good about their brand. And like, but having that face be able to come to a door and deliver that top tier service in person and be able to walk someone through and answer their questions. Like, I don't think people often really associate salespeople with being able to really help them through a purchasing process.
Yeah. Which is literally all we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, if you don't want the system, I'm not going to twist your arm to get it because I know, like, I'm just going to get a cancellation and that's not worth it to me. Like, I'm like, hey, if you're really not about this, I'm going to just leave and find somebody who is.
Right, because you don't want to waste your time either.
Yeah. So it's kind of, you're not qualifying yourself. Like, I'm not qualifying me on the doors. I'm asking somebody that I'm talking to at their house, hey, is this person actually interested in a qualified buyer? Because if they're not, I should move on.
Yeah. Right. It's not like, and I think we mentioned this distinction before, but it's like a lot of people think that, I thought this, like a good salesperson can turn anybody into a sale, and it's not the reality. The reality is, like, especially like with the job you have, it's like you can probably take someone who's like a 5 or 6 out of 10 interest, probably 6 or 7. We're going for like 7 or 8, like for starters, interest in the product already, or like in the category. Yeah. And we're going to turn them into a 10, and that's going to be the sale. Yeah. But people that think we just take 1s and 2s and 3s and just turn them into 10s, it's like, no, like you don't understand. Like some people buy iPhones and some people buy Androids, and some of it is just completely the culture and
some people
the
buy
ideals of the company.
So
yeah. So and it's like you're not going to turn you might turn a flip phone customer into an iPhone customer, but like if they're like loyal flip phoners, it's like there's probably a deeper why they have, and it's like to recognize that's not your customer, move to the people that are like ready to buy iPhones. Yeah, like get the money that's already out there, you know.
Yeah, pretty much, because. Or I think like in a lot of other sales jobs that aren't like knocking on doors, there's people that will come to you for stuff. So in that situation, it's like, okay, now you just be able to explain the product well and why they should get it. Whereas like door knocking, like a lot of the people you run into just completely aren't interested in what you're selling.
Right. And so it's going to them.
Oh, you're not interested. All right, bye. I'll go bug your neighbors.
Like almost finding the people that would come to your business. Yeah. But they're just at home and you're going to find them. Yeah. That's super cool.
And we're basically making it so like a lot of the people would probably make this decision to get the security system like down the line anyway. It's just we're kind of speeding up the process a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we had a couple things prepared today. I know, Adam, you learned some things this past week. You had some frameworks to share on the topic of mindset. And we just kind of want to talk about like, what is the difference between somebody who just kind of aims higher and thinks bigger? We might be more specific with like people that are rich or wealthy and kind of their mindsets towards money and business and life. And you have those people that always will stay poor. I mean, we had mentioned this before, like they get $1 million and in maybe a couple months it's gone because they think poor. We kind of wanted to expand a little bit about some of the mentalities that the middle upper class have. Yeah, you learned some cool frameworks and just wondered if you could kind of share that with everyone today.
Yeah, so there's 4 different like broke mindsets, which are mindsets of being like poor, keyword being broke here. And
Right.
these are actually derived from the book Wealth Mindset by a woman named Candy Valentina, which is the most rich white girl name I've ever heard in my life.
It's like Russian mafia mixed with like a little bit of Hershey's like joy.
Yeah, something like that. Like there's like her name is Candy, so it's like you get that like bubbly like white girl vibe, but then her last name is like Valentina, and it's like, okay, well, you have money. I don't know. But that's just a name. Anyway, for the broke mindsets, the first one is a scarcity mindset. And we've talked about this before on the podcast of thinking like, oh, there's only like so much like money or so much like value in the world. And like if I'm taking this money, like if I have this money, I'm actually like stealing it from somebody else, which just isn't true. But also at the same time, like even when I was like knocking on doors talking about this, it's like the like this neighborhood's not good. No one wants to buy it in this neighborhood. And it's like, actually there's like a ton of doors and a ton of houses that you haven't even talked to the people that are in them. And there's also like way more doors in the United States that I can knock on than I have a lifetime to do.
Right.
But I think really the opposite of that is an abundance mindset. Actually thinking there like there is all the more like people I can talk to than I could possibly talk to in my lifetime to sell a security system to. And then there's also like, hey, there's more I can do. And being like, oh, we talked about this earlier with like internet companies coming up and, you know, creating trillions of dollars of value that wasn't there a few years ago. And I think like something that really helps go from the scarcity mindset to the abundance mindset is actually a lot of its exposure to what's possible. Just being able to like talk with people and see what they're doing and be like, wow, I haven't actually really thought of that before. So like in a way, having an abundance mindset is a little bit more open to possibilities rather than being like, oh, no, oh, you're making tons of money selling stuff. Oh, you're probably ripping people off. It's like, actually, no, I'm just providing an abundance of value for a lot of people because they really want to feel safe in their own home.
And the abundance mindset too is also has to do with just like believing that there's money out in the world.
Yeah.
And not just like that everything's limited and there's like the opposite would be the scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Where like you just don't think there's any money available.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And I think, and then the next broke mindset is future condition, which is, oh, I'll buy a house when I get a promotion. If I get a promotion, I'll start, like, I'll break off and go and start my own business. Like, it's kind of like when if statements that are like, when this happens, then I'll go do this. And a lot of that is, I think, comes out of lack of ownership of like, yeah, you'll say like, when this happens or if this happens, then I'll do this. But you're not actually taking steps to make that when if like happen.
Yeah. Because you could be like, oh, like one day when I have energy, I'll work on this project, but I'm always tired, so.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'll get up in the morning when I can get enough sleep the night before. And it's like, well, if that's always the case and you stay up late all the time, then you're just never going to get up and work out.
It's almost one of two things. Like it's either a way people justify their behavior. Yeah. Because they're like, oh, well, I don't have energy. So like, but then in their minds, they think, oh, when? Almost like there's an opportunity of it. But yeah, number two is like, if you don't have any plans or actionables on, like, I think that's great to be like, oh, like, instead of saying, when I have energy, I'll do these hard things, to be like, well, I don't have energy and it makes it challenging to do these hard things. How can I fix that? And how can I move towards coming up with solutions to that?
And I think like the
That would be proactive.
Yeah, the resolution to the future condition mindset is to evaluate where you're going. So then like, oh, like if I want to buy a duplex when I make this a certain amount of money, it's like, okay, well, what's it going to take for me to make that certain amount of money? And then whatever that is, break that down into smaller pieces until you get to a point where you have actionable steps that you can actually, have a staircase that you can climb. Turning a mountain into a staircase.
Conceptualizing it in a way that you can relate to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like with that too, like there's this thought of like, you look at a picture of a mountain and you just kind of go, oh, wow. But when you look at the trees on the mountain, and there are some trees in the picture that are very close, and there are some trees that are literally on top of the mountain, and it just looks like a green mesh,
Mm-hmm.
And you could think, wow, that's a pine tree. And you can see the car next to the pine tree, and you could go, oh, I know how big that car is. Oh, and I can see how big that tree is. Oh, and I can see that tree is all of these trees all the way up the mountain. Oh, and then all of a sudden you can relate to the scale of the tree. Therefore, you can actually conceptualize how big the mountain really is.
Yeah.
But until you really start breaking down those elements and kind of like, seeing that, like, I don't know, that blew my mind of being like, people almost don't really get the value out of the art unless they can relate to how amazing and epic it really is.
Yeah. So I think that really comes down to just being able to evaluate where you're at and where you need to go to get to the place you want to be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah. There's two more broke mindsets, and that is lack of gratitude and being with the wrong people. And we'll kind of combine these two, because I think lack of gratitude that one's kind of self-explanatory how you solve that one. You just need to have more gratitude. And it's kind of like the difference between someone who wakes up and sees that it's like raining or snowing today and be like, oh man, it's raining today. This sucks.
Yeah.
And then another person that wakes up and is like, oh, it's raining today. Like, oh, we kind of needed that. Like, or in the case of the Northland, when it's snowing, someone can wake up and it's like, oh, it's snowing today. This sucks. I have to like clean off my car now. And this is so dumb. And it's like, and then there can be someone that wakes up and be like, oh, snow. This reminds me of like sledding, and it's really beginning to look like Christmas now,
Yeah.
So it's like gratitude for the things in your life. But then the fourth one is being around the wrong people. And I think this one is kind of a very complicated one because you only have so much energy in a day. And it's not necessarily like you can't associate with the lowly, because I think that is something that is good to do. Right. It's that who are you spending the most time with? Making sure that those people are actually pushing you in a mindset to grow.
Yeah. I think we would love to probably spend a whole episode on each of these because there's a lot of great content here, especially with like, I know that's something that I've been reading a lot about, that latter one of who do you surround yourself with. And we had mentioned about the environment piece with, those people from the Atomic Habits book example, where these people had in Vietnam had been surrounded by drugs, and then they were all addicts there. But when they got back and it wasn't in their environment, when it wasn't around them, they weren't addicts anymore. And it's a similar thing when you're surrounded by people with mindsets like this, and it just like it can't help but bleed into the way you think. But kind of finding the kind of in a nutshell, it's like finding the people and surrounding yourself by people that want to be successful, want to be better, want to improve. And when it comes to like money and business, like surround yourself by people who have net worth higher than you that are doing bigger things, instead of like the people that are like sitting on a couch eating potato chips, working a minimum wage job. If those were all of your friends and you spent all your time with them, you'd probably be, it's that compound. You're a compound of the 5 people you spend your most time with. Really is. And so, that one's just such a powerful concept, but can't stress that enough. But that's what we got time for today, guys. And really excited to just share some of these thoughts on mindset. And this will be a continual thing. Like mindset is one of the topics that is at the core of everything that a person is and does. And if we're trying to become better men, if we're trying to aim higher and do bigger things, and be more for others, we have to learn to acquire these good mindsets. and to build the read these materials through books, through good media, through people we surround ourselves with, really build ourselves up into becoming the dangerous man. Join us next time. We're looking forward to it. And stay dangerous.